On weigh-in this morning, Pam and Sam deliver in superb style as Savaglee lives up to the 2000 Guineas hype. He's still got it all right. Brightside blitzes a very good field in the Champions Mile. James McDonald finds the smallest of gaps to help Sunshine in Paris turn the Everest tables. And what can we say about Via Sistina? The spring sensation blows them away to end the Melbourne Carnival. What a Saturday it was. Great to have you with us this morning on Weigh In on your Sunday. The 2000 Guineas was brilliant. The end of the Melbourne Carnival was superb, and there was some other New Zealand racing to get stuck into as well. I'll bring in the team as usual. Emily Murphy, morning to you. You were down there. Looked a stunning day for the Guineas.
It was a stunning day. The weather delivered and the result in the Group 1 2000 Guineas delivered as well. Obviously, we had a short-priced favourite, and Savaglee lived up to expectations with such a dominant win. So that's really exciting. And I think for Sam Sprat, an incredible day in the saddle she delivered. So we'll be getting to chat to her just a little bit later on. And Jane, it wasn't just New Zealand that had the Group 1 action, but Australia was super exciting, and Victoria as well.
Some brilliant racing in Australia yesterday, and of course 3 Group 1s to end the Melbourne Cup Carnival, and they certainly ended it in style, didn't they, with 2 superstars of the track certainly shining bright in Via Sistina and Mr Brightside. But not only are we celebrating equine athletes today, we're also celebrating the human variety. You've mentioned Sam Sprat. She had a brilliant day at Riccarton with 4 wins. Vinnie Colgan, 3 wins at Te Rapa, and of course James McDonald, who broke his own record across the Flemington Carnival with 11 wins throughout the 4 days. So what we've seen over the last week has just been some brilliant action on the track. It's so wonderful for our sport.
And Chris Waller in the training ranks, and obviously Pam Gerard as well, training Savaglee to that wonderful 2000 Guineas win. He was the short-priced favourite, and he delivered brilliantly.
For 2024, the 2000 Guineas fields are ready. Racing from the 1600, and when Stars Align missed it half a stride, Savaglee is going to roll forward at the start with So Naive. 800 metres to go, and the leader is So Naive, out by a half a length on When Stars Align. Savaglee, Love Poem poised to bounce. Savaglee has gone to the lead at the 300. Love Poem won't go away though. Domain Ace is running on wider. It's Savaglee a length and a half clear from Love Poem, and then Domain Ace. Savaglee at the 100 metres, 2 or 3 lengths in front of Love Poem. Then came Domain Ace, but he's all spirit and speed. Savaglee, a spectacular Guineas win by 3 lengths at the line, beat Love Poem, Domain Ace.
Deep sigh there from you, Pam. Job done.
Yeah, he's been brilliant. I have to admit I wasn't worried about it till about 10 minutes before, and then excuse my language, it all hits home, and you just start you sort of start thinking, have I done it all right? But look, Sam's riding like a demon today. She was very confident. Really happy with the job the boys have done. They couldn't have done any more. The horse is just a really good little horse that's gone from strength to strength.
Not a huge number of lady jockeys have won this race, so to join that at Riccarton over this carnival, I reckon it'll be pretty special for you.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's always, great to win them. Haven't ridden a huge amount of, boys or colts in that over my time. I sort of tend to be a bit of a fillies girl, so no, it's great to have a nice colt, that's for sure.
Yeah, very happy Rick Williams, and why wouldn't he be? He's just a classy colt.
He is. He showed it today. He's improved, I think, every race this year. And he got a lovely trip from Sam, and the gaps opened, and, he did a great job.
Yeah, he was brilliant, all right, Savaglee, as was Sam Sprat, and she is joining us live on the show this morning. Sam, thanks very much for taking the time, and relatively early on your Sunday as well, after such a brilliant day. You swept the feature races, obviously the highlight being that with Savaglee. You said there that you haven't really ridden too many colts like him. What is it about him, and what growth have you seen in him this season particularly to deliver how he did yesterday?
He's just stepped up so much. Can't believe it really. From when I won him as a 2-year-old last year, he showed a lot then as a 2-year-old, and I think just mentally he's sort of really putting it together, and he's just stepping up so much. He's just getting better and better every start. Like, I think everyone's sort of seeing that. He looks like a good horse, and then next start, there people all, ears prick a little bit more and a little bit more, and he's just, he's really finding his groove, that's for sure.
Sam, talk to me about the day yesterday, because I don't care who you are, $1.55 favourite in a Group 1 is pressure from all angles. Did you have a game plan going into the race, or were you pretty flexible as to where you wanted to find yourself in running?
Nah. I honestly was pretty much just winging it. Like, I think I said pre-race, and it was pretty much that's what I was going to do. I knew he's got speed to go forward, but at the same time, I thought if people try to go, I can go plan B. Had a sort of a decent enough draw to do that. And I just sort of thought, I said to Rick and Pam before, I said, I'm just going to literally wait till the gates open and make the decision then. So, it was, he jumped first and I thought, oh, yep, we're going to lead. But when they kicked up, I just thought, oh, no, I opted to, take a sit in behind them, and it worked out perfectly.
There was a moment there when you turned in that you were sort of caught in a little pocket. What was going through your mind then?
I wasn't too worried because he's got such an amazing turn of foot. Like, he's got a really, really good turn of foot. And so I thought, if I'm pocketed, I wasn't too worried, even if I'm sort of still, I knew I'd be there. And I just thought the gaps will open. Everything's going to open up and drop away. So I wasn't really too worried. I thought I'll be able to get out. And as I said, he's got a turn of foot. I knew he would be able to pick them up pretty quickly, even if he was sort of stuck in a bit of a pocket. So I wasn't too worried. But when the horse outside, when Stars Align, I think it was, just rolled off a little bit, I just managed to sort of sneak up in that gap, and it was probably only sort of, it wasn't a huge one, but managed, as I said, I was just travelling so good to sort of manage to make a bit of a gap as well, and and he just cruised, he just travelled up amazingly. I was a bit worried he was sort of going to go too early because he really grabbed the bit when I sort of popped off, but he and then I could hear the other ones coming at me, and I thought, I didn't know whether they were going to run over the top of me. I knew it was probably going to be Love Poem, and I know she's got an amazing finish. But yeah, as I said, then when you really get stuck into him, he, as I said, he kicks away again. So it was, it all planned out perfectly.
I listened to a comment that you made, Sam, where you basically said once the day's done, it's forgotten about. Do you ever spend any time, I guess, reminiscing or celebrating the success of a day like you had on the track yesterday?
Nah, not really. I actually jumped on a plane down to Dunedin and then almost got stuck at Dunedin Airport because I couldn't get a rental car because the rental companies were closed, but managed to get one through Go Rental, so good on you, Go Rental. I managed to get a car literally, like, this is that night, and and shoot it over went for an hour drive over the hills to Middlemarch to a wedding. So it was quite different, and not one racing person over there, and so it was very, very different crowd, that's for sure. But that's the way I sort of tend to roll things, that's for sure.
And now you're on weigh-in this morning. You've done it all. A real trooper for jumping on. You're having, on a serious note, you're having an amazing season in the saddle. As I said, a clean sweep of the feature races yesterday. 34 wins already this season at a strike rate of less than 6. What is it about this season? Has there been a catalyst for these great results? Have you changed anything? What is it about your riding that you think is getting such good results this year?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I think if you would be amazing, we'd all be having amazing seasons. But I don't know. I think people have their theories, but I personally just think it's you got fast horse. That's what I think it comes down to. Because I don't really know. Really, as I said, I think if we knew. If you knew the ingredients of having a good season, you'd be laughing. But as I said, I think it just comes down to the horsepower, really. You can't do it if you don't have the horsepower, that's for sure.
Sam, you're the country's leading jockey at the moment in the Premiership. Do you have any designs on going for another Premiership?
Nah, honestly, I mean, hey, look, if it came down the last bit, you'd think about it. But I don't. I mean, Mike Brown, my manager, he's been doing my rides for 18 years now, and he knows how I tick. And I don't say I know how he ticks, but I don't really need to know how he ticks. But and we know that I'm no good when I travel heaps, and he knows how I work. I still almost, I don't know, it's from my head injury, not, but I get tired quite easily, and I'm no good at backing up and traveling too much. I just crash basically, and Mike knows that, and so he manages it well. And it's just basically looking after yourself. I've obviously got buggered hips and shoulders and things like that, and they start hurting. So it's I'm looking after an old car. You've got to oil them. So So I I don't like doing doing too much. So no, but I'd like, to be fair, I reckon winning Jockey of the Year would that's something I would almost love to. I'd love to win that over the premiership. That's for sure.
Well, Sam, it's a refreshing way that you approach things and the way that you look at your career. You did mention that one of the key factors is certainly getting on good horses and riding fast horses. You get to do that again this coming Saturday in the 1,000 Guineas with Alabama Lass. How are you feeling leading into next weekend?
Yeah, I'm pretty confident. I mean, obviously telling things with the mile, I don't think she'll have a problem. I think if she runs straight at Ellerslie, she would have won by 4 or 5 lengths. Yes, they were coming at her, but I don't think it was necessarily that she was running out of puff. I think it was more she just wasn't running straight. So whether it's right-handed for her, so now going back left-handed, I think she'll be able to get away with it. But I mean, that's obviously going to be the the telling point. But I'm pretty confident that she'll be fine.
Sam, you had 3 other winners on the programme outside of Savaglee yesterday. Just give us a quick comment around maybe what was your pick of those wins and what stood out for you.
Elysian Dream, well, obviously Elysian Dream I thought that would go all right, and it did when it managed to get the kick on. I didn't have to do any work early. I thought I was going to be a pretty strong chance. And obviously then the other 2, I sort of, thank you, Craig, managed to pick up. Was obviously a little bit, had too many pies the night before. I'm sure he didn't. Managed to pick them up. So I actually didn't realise I had them till I got to the races. So, it was a good surprise, that's for sure.
You're a breath of fresh air. We love having you around the New Zealand racing scene, and particularly having on weigh-in this morning. Might have to get you on next week if Alabama Lass goes well. Thanks again, Sam. Well done.
Early and do my face. I put my back on.
You look a treat. Go and enjoy your day. Thank you very much, Sam Sprat there. She was brilliant yesterday, obviously, as we spoke about, as was Savaglee.
We didn't talk about there with her, but she is on 21 Group 1 wins, and from what I understand, the most winning female Group 1 winning jockey in the world, get that right, is Julie Crone on 23. While Sam doesn't celebrate milestones and talk about milestones,
that's a huge one.
Huge for a New Zealand woman to be closing in on the record and potentially hold the record for most winning female Group 1 jockey. That's a remarkable achievement for a New Zealander.
I thought her comments were really interesting in the fact that the premiership's not what interests her. Obviously, she's a jockey that we don't see travel as much as others, but I quite liked her comment on saying I'd like to win the Jockey of the Year. And look, she's tracking really well for that, leading the premiership, not only on wins, but on prize money. We've already mentioned her strike rate. There's only one other jockey in the top 10 that's got a better strike rate than her, and that's Widamupin. He probably needs to sort out his issues with the stewards if he's any chance of going further forward this preparation. But she's also, her group and listed wins this season is far superior than any other jockey as well. So she's right, she's getting on the right horses, she's getting on fast horses. So look, I think that goal is certainly one that's really achievable for her this season if she continues on the trajectory that she's on.
She's so well liked and so well respected, and she's had such a long and established career. I think she's so deserving of the success she's getting.
All right, well, we've talked a little bit about the race, but let's show you a bit of key vision from the race and get Emily and Jane's thoughts around how this played out. Obviously, as we can see here, Savaglee jumps pretty well. And then, as we see, gets into a pocket in a few strides' time. Talk us through how this unfolds.
We heard from Sam, obviously she jumped well and she thought she was going to lead, and then things just sort of changed complexion a bit. And this is what I love about Savaglee. He's pretty versatile and he's just such a good, honest little racehorse. She can let things unfold as they may, and you can see here she just elects to take a sit, and it's all pretty comfortable. Love Poems directly outside of Savaglee. Just keep watch of Domain Ace, who makes up some really good ground as well late, but it was just this moment when she wanted to pop off through the pocket, Jane, where potentially things could have got a little bit hairy.
Well, I mean, look, in a Group 1 race, I've always thought the trail's probably the worst place to be because you rely on a little bit of luck to get out. But what it meant is the horse got a really nice economical trip in transit. When Stars Alone was a little bit slower away, I think that sort of changed the complexion really early in the race. Kevin Stott was quite aggressive to ride the horse once he was slow away to sit outside the leader, and as you can see, he's now compounding and going through the field pretty quickly. Did pull up with a little bit of an issue, but what that meant was that the gap opened for Sam, so I can't imagine there were too many nervous moments for her at the top of the straight because it all panned out beautifully. Love Poem was really good in defeat, chased, but what I thought was really interesting from Savaglee is when Love Poem sort of got up beside Savaglee, he kicked again, and he was actually really strong at the end of the mile. When you go back and look at the 2000 Guineas in history, it was a sharp time, third fastest on the clock in history behind Hugo Foscolo and Extravagant. And if you look at the other mile races on the day, on the program, I know there were a couple of early, Emily, where they were probably running on a slightly softer track, but the maidens went round in 1:36.93, the first rating 65, 1:37.30, and the final rating 65, which was obviously later in the day, 1:36.8. The Guineas time, 1:33.86. So we're talking 3 lengths or 3 seconds faster than any other mile race on that day, which equates to about 18 lengths. So it was a slick time. There was some chat prior to the Guineas that maybe this wasn't an elite 2000 Guineas field, but the time suggests that he's a smart horse.
Certainly need to mention Pam Gerard as well, because this is a Group 1 win in her own name. And for the women, yesterday, Sam Sprat and Pam, huge day. And you could see in her face post-race, she wasn't stressed in the build-up, but those final 10 minutes and then the relief of it all going the way she wanted. Full credit to her as well. We spoke to Siva Marsh this morning with regards to Love Poem and whether the horse backs up or not. And they're going to have a quiet few days and see Wednesday before withdrawal, so leave it as late as they can. They're keen to back up, but they want to be 100% sure she's A-OK. They've already got that Group 1 placing, so she's a very valuable filly already.
Yeah, certainly echo your sentiments around Pam Gerard and what she has done in terms of Savaglee and throughout her whole career as well.
Look, just in terms, before, I just want to touch on the winner in Savaglee. Did speak to the connections this morning with Rick Williams. Now, there was a lot of chat post the race yesterday about the NZB Kiwi, and that obviously the slot holders would be very interested in the horse, and would the Oak Stud even potentially buy a slot themselves so that he got into the race. But having spoken to Rick Williams this morning, and it was a thought that ran through my head straight after the horse crossed the line. He's a $400,000 yearling. He was a colt that obviously bought to develop into a stallion. He's ticked a box in winning a Group 1 Classic, which obviously means he's earned his spot now in a stallion barn. But winning a Group 1 race in Australia probably increases his value 3 or 4-fold. So the team, obviously with Catalyst, who was a gelding, looked at the Australian Guineas several years ago, and it's certainly on the table. So Rick Williams just said this morning that no decisions have been made, but the 2 options are to either stay in New Zealand and run an NZB Kiwi, or to head to Australia and run in an Australian Guineas. So he may be a horse that we don't see in New Zealand. Well, obviously we'll see him race in New Zealand, but his grand final may be in Australia next year, or next season.
Which will be a huge blow for the NZB Kiwi, but we'll certainly keep abreast of that as we build towards it, obviously in March. But we're going to take a break here on Weigh In. When we come back, we'll look at the rest of the New Zealand racing.
Vencedor ranged up on the outside to take the lead from Wolfgang. 2 lengths away, Tira Matika out of stock, no compromise in Valdezoldo. It's El Vencedor, went to the lead at the 150, put 2 lengths on Wolfgang. Tira Matika out of stock and no compromise, but shut the gate. El Vencedor, he's going to rack up another win here at Ellerslie.
Yeah, very good win there by El Vencedor. That was on Melbourne Cup Day at Ellerslie on Tuesday, the Group 3 for the stayers. Emily, He is now at the top of the list, I believe, or a joint top of the pile in terms of the Dunstan Stayers bonus leaderboard.
He sure is, and this is such a good concept because they get points through a number of different races throughout the season. There's the Champion Middle Distance Series, so the Arrowfield Stud Plate, the Livermore, the Balmerino, the TAB Mile is the next one you can get points, the Tab Classic, there's a Beal Classic, there's a whole host of different races throughout the season. The final race of this series is going to be run on Champion Stakes Day, and $500,000 worth of bonuses shared amongst the owners. So it's a really cool concept to run in these races and be able to gain points when it comes to that extra bonus at the end. Great concept for owners. In terms of El Vencedor, obviously really well suited under the conditions of the Balmerino, and really looked like a special on the day and won accordingly. Heads on the 7th of December to the Wellington TAB Mile, and from there the Zabeel Classic. So a nice path mapped out for this horse, and we saw last year gets better and better the more racing he has, so expect him to be running well.
Well, you mentioned the next race in that series is the mile on Wednesday down at Riccarton. We're going to take you back to a bit more of racing from Riccarton yesterday, starting with the Pegasus Stakes. Excuse me. This was won by Illicit Dreams from south of Houston, Tiki and the Radiant One.
Yes, lovely win by Illicit Dreams, and it was a classic Sam Sprat, controlled from the front and really dictated and kicked away with ease. Of the beaten horses, I think there's some really interesting ones to take out of it. Take nothing away from Illicit Dreams. Incredible performance, but south of Houston, get the pronunciation right. I did it yesterday. We'll talk about that in a second. I thought it was south of Houston. It's not, FYI. I think she'll really improve with the run. Going to take leaps and bounds from this run. And for Tiki, they were rolling the dice at this level, and I think they've certainly been given the confidence they need that Tiki is potentially up to this grade and can run accordingly.
Also thought the Lisa Ladder pair, Emily, were really good closing as well. Both Lincoln Cruise and Platinum Attack, there were merits to their run. As you mentioned, Sam was able to control the race from the outset, but there were a couple of big runs from horses that got well back in the field that were actually closing quite hard.
Spoke to Kenny Ray this morning, and she was in the paddock overnight. If she eats up, they're going to press on, but they won't know that sort of later today and tomorrow. The main aim was always the stewards, but they thought they'd roll the dice and try the Pegasus in case they didn't get the draws that they needed. He wants to win a railway, Kenny Ray. That's what he said to me today. He said he wants to do a Sheila Laxon. He won it, 21 years ago with Our Egyptian Rain. He wants to do a Sheila Laxon and win it 22 years later. So railways on the programme for Illicit Dreams, and yeah, it was a good win and a good start.
We might just have the horse to do it now. It is south of Houston.
Yeah, she's a deep field mare that started her career in Australia, and look, we were drawn into the same issues when we first started pronouncing her name in Victoria. She was formerly with the Price Kent stable, and it is south of Houston. So apparently Houston Street is a street in New York that forms the Soho district. So that's where Soho comes from, south of Houston.
This is why you
I wish I knew that because I'd been to New York, you know.
we can't claim that we got it right in Victoria the first time. So obviously
Noted.
It was really funny watching the race. I was like, south of Houston, there's a horse in Australia called South, like spelt exactly the same, but it's south of Houston, not south of Houston. And then when I actually looked the horse up, I was like, well, it is that horse. He was having she was having her first start here in New Zealand. And one thing I do have to say, I know you mentioned that it's a horse that obviously will get better with racing, having its first start in here, but it's got a great second up record. So those that want to note it, obviously down in their black books, south of Houston, great second up record.
Great info, great insight, names and New Zealand. Second up stats, love it.
That's why you watch weight, and also an early weight watcher as well, but we'll get to that segment a little bit later on. The Metropolitan Trophy was the other feature on the card at Riccarton, won by Mezzabine from Beavertown boy LJ Prince Elby. Some really nice cup runs leading towards next weekend out of this.
It was really a rinse and repeat in terms of a Sam Sprat ride. Mezzabine's never led in its life and jumped, put itself there and just was really left alone in front and was allowed to roll along, get some really good sectionals and then kick away. Craig Grills will jump back on Mezzabine next week. Obviously couldn't make the weight yesterday, and Sam Sprat is committed to Can He Rock. In terms of eye catchers, we just can't get away from Beavertown boy, and LJ under the weight as well, just running his normal super honest race.
Look, I thought a couple of really eye-catching runs in terms of looking ahead to a New Zealand Cup. As you've already mentioned them, Emily, and Beavertown boy, I thought he was massive, and LJ. But look, when a horse leads at the sectionals that Sam led that race, which was really steady. The field didn't change complexion throughout. Nobody put any pressure on her. So, look, she stole the race and was able to kick clear. A little bit disappointing, I thought, Nesteg. He had a really good run in transit, Emily sitting in the trail, but really didn't show a lot when he got some clear air.
Yeah, I wanted to follow that up with Stephen Marsh, and he said 100% it was a below par run, not what they were expecting, but he seemed super and they're going to back up. One thing I'd say about him, when he came into the parade ring yesterday, I don't really know what he's like on the whole, but geez, he was fresh. He was jumping around and having a bit of a kick with the blinkers on, so potentially he's going to come on from that run. Maybe he's done too well down south and he'll improve from that, but certainly was below par, but he seems well and they're going to back up.
Alrighty, let's hear from some of the key connections around the race, starting with Sam Burgesson, the co-trainer of Mezzabine.
Good positive ride. She was really stiff in this race last year, so she probably deserved that, but look, she's in fantastic form. Her Waverley Cup run showed that she was on the right trajectory, and the step up and trip certainly suits, so bring on the 3200.
Yeah, really happy with them. Finished the race off really well, so all's looking well towards the Cup. Oh, just a bit slow out, got in a good spot on the rail and just clicked up and had to just shift ground in the straight, but hit the line well, and looking forward to next week.
Run well. Probably had to sacrifice a length or two just not to dig him, get him charging. But travelled well, run well, should run well again next week.
Yeah, nice run. Be ready for the Cup 3200.
He didn't go about race. I was just too positive, and I think he likes to be midfield with cover, and I got out in the clear for too long. But he won a good race.
Didn't get any favours early, got caught 3 wide, had to go back further than I wanted. The pace sort of quickened up about the 1100, but I did hit the line very nice, which was a positive from that point of view, looking at next week.
I was quite shocked with his performance, to be honest. He was below par. He jumped clean, went up in a nice enough spot. He was keen enough, so I just come back half a length, and we did get inconvenienced down the back straight, but it didn't take toll on his performance. Once he had clear air, he only gave ground, so it was very disappointing.
That was the connections out of the Metropolitan Trophy. Emily, I'm going to come to you. You were down there yesterday. What were your thoughts about the day as a whole, in terms of the program particularly, and I suppose crowd on the ground as well?
I'm glad you asked me that. Anyone would think we'd had a chat pre-show, but...
Don't tell them our secrets.
Yeah, I know. Look, I love the Riccarton Cup Carnival. It's got everything you'd need. It's New Zealand's version of Cup Week in Australia. But I just wonder if it needs a little bit of modernising. 11 races yesterday is a huge undertaking, and it's a program filled with 4 of those 11 races were 2 maidens and 2 rating 65s. And I just wonder if it takes away from some of the quality, the flair, the excitement of a big race day. There's those 2 stakes races on the Wednesday. I don't know anything about race programming or how this would work, but moving those 2 stakes races to the Saturdays, so you have a Super Saturday, making the Wednesday an industry day where you do get to run the maidens and the rating 65s. You could great barbecue for connections and staff who are on site. And with those Saturdays, then you create excitement, you create quality fields, and maybe even an innovation around a maiden series where the final was run on one of those days. There's so many ways you could unpick it, modernise it, and really bring back the glamour of Cup Week. And I think it does need looking at. And I love Cup Week, but I just feel there's so much room to expand, grow, add to the quality.
I agree with you 100%, Emily. I think they're really key comments surrounding the carnival. We know people will go next Saturday because it's New Zealand Cup Day and it's the biggest day of the carnival. But when you look at what they do in Australia, particularly around Melbourne Cup Week, and the crowds that they get throughout every single meeting throughout the week, there is no reason why we can't do that in Christchurch, and we used to. I actually thought the crowd was quite disappointing yesterday in terms of what we saw on track, and it'd be great to see some innovation to get people back on race day, back on course. I know people aren't going to go to the races like they used to, but there should be key dates throughout the year where you can guarantee that you're going to get people on course and get them to celebrate horse racing.
I think Flemington's a prime example yesterday. 9 races, Champions Day, an incredible day of top quality racing, 60,000 people on track. Here in New Zealand, our most talked about day of the year is Karaka Million. It's a 6-race program. I think there can be change the focus. Don't be afraid to move, to be modern. That's what's going on in our industry. We're seeing it across the ditch. Let's move with the times.
I think the biggest problem is people have just been stuck doing something the same way for so long, and they're quite happy to keep continuing to do that. And unfortunately, it's not going to work going forward. Then there needs to be some change, and it is a carnival that probably needs to be looked at.
Yeah, too right. Alrighty, well, Rapa also had some racing yesterday, and it featured a couple of very good horses. One of them won in pretty good style in the end in Babylon, Berlin. Trainer Ben Foot was a little bit unsure about how she would go. Well, she lived up to her billing, that's for sure.
Well, look, you've only got to look at her fresh record to suggest that you could have a little bit of confidence in the way that she's going to run first up in a campaign. 10 fresh runs have produced 3 wins and 4 placings for the mare, so she's certainly very good first up in a campaign. Inside barrier draw helped her, and the fact that she was able to pop out of the gates. Vinnie Colgan got control of the race very early, and it was sort of all over. She's been, I guess, in some ways a great mare for Connections. 9 wins, over 600,000 in prize money, but also probably incredibly frustrating that they've had to be a runner-up on 3 occasions at Group 1 level. She's probably a mare that deserves Group 1. It'd be really interesting to see what path they follow this time in. I know that they headed to Pukekohe after running in this race last year, and then obviously we've got races like the Telegraph and the Railway. But look, Emily, I think she's a very good mare, and now I think 7-year-old. They're getting some longevity out of her career, so it would be great if she could finally crack that Group 1 for Connections.
And we've seen a real resurgence in 7-year-old mares winning sprint races. Look at Bella Nipotina racing in the best form of her life. She takes managing, obviously, and credit to the Ben and Ryan Foot team because she's overcome some niggles. But there was also a person on the day there that needs a mention in terms of Vinnie Colgan, because we learned late yesterday afternoon that he had in fact lost his mum just a couple of days ago. He didn't want anybody to know yesterday. He wanted to get through the day, but I understand he's taken a few days off now, and thoughts with him and his family on the loss, and he did incredibly well to hold it together yesterday.
Yeah, no doubt he was riding with his mum in mind, and our thoughts, as Emily says, are very much with Vinnie today. We're going to take a quick break here on Weigh In. That is a wrap of the New Zealand racing. When we come back, we'll talk all things Australia.
I'm with Melbourne Cup jockey Robbie Dolan. How's that sound? Oh, pinch me, I think I'm dreaming. This is your first winner in the Melbourne Cup Carnival, and just happens to be the biggest race in our calendar. It's incredible. I can't believe it. I don't even know what to say. I can't even put into words. This is the biggest race in the world, and to win it, it's just incredible. I've got my family here, my partner Christine, our little baby, Maisie. My dad flew over from Ireland, and now you got me in tears.
Sheila Lexon, after winning the Melbourne Cup for the second time, how does that feel?
Oh, it feels normal.
Of course it does. It's to do it with the family here though this time.
Oh, it's so special, so absolutely special. And Lucy got me this maiden. It's got Ethereal's hair in it, and so she's with us today as well. And to have Lucy and John and Lauren and Jack and George and William here is so special.
Yeah.
So special.
She's done well to remember all their names, to be fair. There's a big crew of them there. Well done to Sheila Laxon, the jockey as well. That was such a cool story, Robbie Dolan. An amazing story. Him singing with Ronan Keating
after the last race. Incredible. I know Michelle Payne made a movie of what she did. That could be a movie too. A voice contestant who's a jockey who wins the Melbourne Cup, who sings with Ronan Keating after the last race. He couldn't make it up.
He's certainly a talented young man, Robbie Dolan. I just love the result of the race and the fact that Sheila Laxon had won so many years ago with Ethereal. She's only ever lined 2 horses up in a Melbourne Cup, and they've both won. Like, it is just incredible. And it's no secret I'm a huge fan of Ronan Keating. So to watch...
Couple of lines.
No, definitely not. Oh, Life is a Roller Coaster would be right up there as one of my favourite songs. But to watch Robbie Dolan actually be able to get up on stage and sing with him, I was like, oh my God, like dreams come true kind of moments.
Voice as well.
Robbie Dolan has an outstanding voice. If you go back
and Google, YouTube, his auditions.
His audition is incredible. For
The Voice.
Yeah. And look, his story's just great. Obviously, he's now based up in Queensland with his family, but even, you know, his daughter was born 25 weeks premature.
Yeah.
It hasn't sort of been the easiest run for Robbie Dolan. So I think it's just fantastic that almost the underdogs got up and won on Melbourne Cup. And that's what makes the Cup so special, is the stories that come out afterwards.
Yeah, it was great for the underdogs to win. It wasn't so good for my wallet, but that's okay. What a day it was at Flemington. I was lucky enough to be there, and it was just truly outstanding from the very start to the very end of that day. Was brilliant, as was the entire carnival, and we had the final day of it yesterday, highlighted by the Champion Stakes won by Via Sistina.
Outside, McDonald hasn't moved yet. Then came a Tissue and Duke de Sessa. Now he goes for the star. 200 to go. Via Sistina, 2 lengths in front of a Tissue, Future History. Then came without a fight, but Via Sistina is drawing away. The star of the spring, and J Mac a perfect 10 again. Via Sistina by 3 and Tissue without a fight, Future History.
Wow, what a machine.
I reckon you could have ridden this one, Bill.
Oh, not like that.
No, mate, that was awesome. Everything just went to beautifully planned. I had the horse to really give me a smooth ride, and 600, 400. I was just like changing, and she just
the 300. It was like the Melbourne Cup. They say wait till the clock tower. The clock tower's pretty close to home.
I don't wait for it. Just let her go. She'll do the rest.
Yeah, it was very special. Winning the Cox Plate the way she did, I think caught everyone by surprise. And then, the pressure to back her up and go one more run. And we spoke about sport analogies and having another game after a grand final. When we were thinking about it constantly. But she's a very, very special horse, obviously. But don't underestimate how hard these horses work. And so we could see that. We just backed off for the last 2 weeks and gave her a good time and worked.
Yeah, she dominated in the Cox Plate, and she was just simply outstanding yesterday. Via Sistina from a Tissue without a fight and Future History, and that man right there, that was his 10th win of the carnival. He made it 11 in the final race of the day, broke his own record. He was brilliant, but we should talk about the horse first. As I said, she was terrific in the Cox Plate, and then to just go and back it up in that kind of fashion was kind of out of this world.
I think it's so good for racing that she was able to back up that Cox Plate performance, because that's what we want to see. We want to see repeated performances at the top level so we can celebrate good horses. And she was so incredibly electric in the Cox Plate. You think, can she replicate that? And I think she went every bit as good as that, and just showed her class and her dominance. And it was only one horse you wanted to be on, Jane.
Yeah, the race set up beautifully for her. Deny Knowledge was the obvious leader of the race, and it was pretty even tempo. I think they went 2 lengths faster than standard to the 800 metres. And she just cruised into the race beautifully. When every other jockey and horse was under pressure, James was just sitting pretty on Via Sistina, and she does it so effortlessly. She's got an incredible stride on her, but the race was set up for those coming from behind. When you look at the horses that set up on the speed, they did compound. It was the 3 horses sort of sat in the back of the field that were 1, 2, 3 in the finish. A Tissue, another brave run from her, and of course, without a fight, a great return for last season's Melbourne Cup winner. So look, I thought bold run from Future History. He was one of the horses that set up on the speed and was still thereabouts in the finish, so a nice effort on his behalf. I know there's been some talk that she's a mare that may even go back to the UK, talk around Royal Ascot, but Chris Waller did say yesterday the mare would now go for a spell and the Queen Elizabeth would be her autumn target. She finished second in the race last season, chasing home Pride of Jenny without a fight. The team are now looking at Hong Kong for him, so he'll have his next start on December 8th in the Hong Kong Vase over 2,400 metres. So a couple of horses out of the meeting heading to Hong Kong, which is really nice. But as you said, Guy, she's just a mare that's so great for racing. Good horses are great for racing, particularly when they keep winning because they get a fan base, people follow them. And look, at the end of the day, Yulong put a lot of money, and I've said it before, they put a lot of money into racing. They spent money to buy this horse out of Europe, and the fact that she's now delivering for them, I think she's exceeded their expectations unbelievably in what she's been able to achieve since she's been in Australia.
We know Wink's obviously got a massive following, and I'm not saying Sistina's Wink's quite yet, but look at this after she had won this race and she's standing there in front of the crowd and everyone was just looking at her, and that's exactly what Wink's used to do. Look, she stops here, she takes it all in, she's so calm. James McDonald gives her the pat that he loves to do. And the crowd is just enthralled by her.
Look, I think it's a characteristic of a very good horse, and Emily, I know you can probably attest to this too, and it just shows their incredible intelligence in the fact that they stop, they prick their ears, they have a look around, they take in their environment. I've seen so many good horses do that. They don't just do it on race day, but they do it at the track in the morning. And I know we were talking about it, Dundee was a horse that used to do it, and it is really a sign of a very good horse when they do that.
It's just that they take that moment, they just absorb the atmosphere almost. You know, from a track gallop, they pull up, they stop, they turn around, they just take it all in and absorb what's going on. And even a horse like Imperatrice, I know post-race, she would make a beeline for the pony to get an interview because, you know, she believed she was that good, and it's so hard for non-horsey people to grasp. But these horses, they know they're good, they rate themselves, they have confidence, they believe that they're the best, and that's the signs of a very good horse.
So off the back of that, we'll get to the other two Group 1s shortly, but I've got to ask you one question. James McDonald was quoted as saying, imagine what she would have won the Melbourne Cup by. It's a hypothetical question, but is it a missed opportunity?
Oh, I don't necessarily think that it's a missed opportunity. No, I think the right decision was made, and Chris Waller explained all the reasons why they made that decision. She came out of a really fast-run Cox Plate. There was, you know, obviously that chat of whether the horses that had come out of that race were going to be a bit flat leading into their next starts. I think what we saw yesterday totally changed that idea, with obviously Mr. Brightside coming out and winning as well out of that particular Cox Plate. But I understand why they did what they did. They put the horse first, and it's one thing we see with Chris Waller a lot. They did what was best for her at that point in time. There's no doubt there's obviously an opportunity to go back to a Melbourne Cup, but look, as a broodmare, I'm not sure that it really makes any difference to her value considering what she's done on the racetrack. She doesn't need to win a Melbourne Cup, so they put the horse first, and I think the right decision was made.
And I think so often the gruelling 3,200 metres can completely change the shape of a horse heading forward in terms of racing, and I just think she's so brilliant to have risked her at the 3,200 metres. How would she come back in the autumn? Very elegant, maybe didn't quite ever regain what she was after her Melbourne Cup win. So if it's something they're going to do, I hope they wait till she's sort of near the end of her career, and maybe that's a final send-off. But Chris Waller knows what he's doing, and yeah. And there's also that narrative around James McDonald not having a ride in the Melbourne Cup, and I think that's more about the weights than it is about him as a jockey. Of course he would have got a ride in the Melbourne Cup, but it's just the way the weights were. There wasn't a whole lot of opportunities, if what was it, 2 or 3 opportunities for him overall.
Well, I think we'll talk about James McDonald a little bit more when we get to the Champions Sprint, but Jane mentioned Mr. Brightside, and he won, of course, the Champions Mile in brilliant fashion. James McDonald's ride in Sunshine in Paris, which we'll talk about shortly, was very good, but Craig Williams' ride here on Mr. Brightside was excellent as well.
Well, again, set up for the horse. When it's a sit and sprint, the horse with the best turn of foot wins, and that was Mr. Brightside. I thought they got the tactics completely wrong on Pride of Jenny. I mean, ultimately, she's had a bleed, so there were things wrong. She was obviously a horse racing much below her best, but to get the best out of Pride Jenny, she needs to be ridden along at fast sectionals. That's what gives her an advantage. When you're running the sectionals that she was, all it does is set up for horses with a sharp turn of foot. He ran the fastest 200 metres of the day, so faster than the sprinters in the champion sprint. It was his final 200, Mr. Brightside. I thought to put the blinkers on at start 40 was just an incredible decision, particularly when you look at what he did this preparation. I know everyone said, oh, he's the comeback. He ran second in a Memsey first up. He then won a Group 1 Makybe Diva. He finished second in a Group 2 Fian, second in a Group 1 Might and Power, fourth in a Cox Plate, and then has come out and won Champions Mole. There was nothing wrong with what this horse was doing through the campaign, but they were just looking for the smallest edge that they could get, and they got that with the blinkers on, and of course the way the race was set up.
Yeah, he's just a warhorse. You just got to love him. He's just an absolute warhorse. You never underestimate him. He's just so ultra consistent. I understand him and Antino are potentially heading to Hong Kong.
So Mr. Brightside will now go for a spell. They're not looking at Hong Kong in December, but they have said perhaps next year for Hong Kong with Mr. Brightside. So they haven't ruled it out. He just won't run in the international meeting at the end of this year. Is it the other carnival is
Champion? Yes.
That's the carnival that they're looking for. Is it May or June? I should have probably looked that up. But anyway, that's where they may look for Mr. Brightside. But Antino, yes, will head to Hong Kong now and run in potentially a Hong Kong mile. Pride of Jenny, disappointing, but obviously had the bleed. Broadsiding Emily, I thought another one that was a little bit disappointing, and James Cummings has come out and said that he'll go for a spell now, and perhaps he's better suited to right-hand racing, so we might not see him in Melbourne next preparation.
Pride of Jenny, we understand via social media, has been retired, obviously, with the bleed out of both nostrils, so really gutting for connections, but at the same time, what a magnificent mare she's been.
And obviously Mr. Brightside and Antino through the Karaka ready-to-run sale as well, which is just up in a couple of weeks, so pretty good timing for them to Quinella that race. The other Group 1 out of Flemington was, of course, the Champion Sprint, won by Sunshine in Paris.
300 to go, it's Estrie other overpass together, Barrakiel, Balanipatina makes a line of 4, and they were followed by Stritton Angel right to party. It's Barrakiel just in front of Stritton Angel, Balanipatina the outside, and right to party's coming at them all, and Sunshine in Paris is coming through, right to party at the 50, Sunshine in Paris driving, Sunshine in Paris has won from right to party, Balanipatina and then Stritton Angel.
J-Mac, you had to look at me, mate, you didn't know whether you won or not.
Yeah, I know, but I was bloody wrapped when the camera started following me and you trotted up next to me, so all that matters is the numbers in the frame, and I'm so thrilled for Annabelle and John, the owner.
I could rattle off numbers all day here. There's 103 Group 1s.
Yes!
Annabelle, your phone's been running hot, and so was she.
Yeah, she was amazing. I was a little bit worried pre-race because she was parading quite quietly. And obviously we've never backed her up before and she's had the trip, but yeah, she was phenomenal and amazing ride by James. The plan was to try and be a bit closer because the last couple of runs she's probably, maybe due to the barriers, she's just ended up that little bit too far back, but she's just got such a strong finish and it was just waiting for that gap, but we had the right man on board.
Sunshine in Paris from Right to Party, Balanipatina and Stritton Angel. This was the ride that I wanted to talk about, the James McDonald ride on this. We were watching it in here yesterday and kind of just blown away.
Yeah, well, the helicopter or drone vision is the best vision in terms of the final part of the race where he's sort of held up in behind them, James, and he just sort of waits for a split. The gap he took was pretty narrow, but that is a jockey that's riding with confidence. She exploded once she got a little bit of clear air. Look, the Everest has just become a really important form guide for this race. When we look back at the last 8 editions of the Champion Sprint, 6 of those have contested the Everest in their start before. So it's become the key lead, and horses are able to come out of the Everest and bounce into a Champion Sprint. And a Sunshine in Paris was so good first up in Ashrako, and then things probably haven't gone her way in subsequent runs, but merit in everything that she's done this preparation. I actually backed her last start when she was beaten by Balanipatina, and I never followed my money yesterday, which I was pretty disappointed when she got her nose down on the line, but she's a talented horse. John Camilleri obviously spent, I think, $3.9 million at the Magic Millions broodmare sale to purchase her, so really nice that they were able to get the results on the track. And obviously congratulations to Annabelle Neesham and, of course, Rob Archibald, who who picked up his first Group 1 win as a trainer. So a nice result there for the team.
I think the James McDonald factor just needs to be sat with a moment, because as we heard from Billy Slater, 103 Group 1 wins. He only broke 104. Sorry, yeah, 104. He only broke the obviously 100 in the Cox Plate. Incredible week already, and that 11 during Cup Week, breaking his own record in the race. We've said it many, many times, but the records he will hold to his name, they'll be very hard to surpass for anybody ever in the history of racing.
I can repurpose what I said a couple of weeks ago, if you like, around James McDonald. I think he needs some more respect put on his name, just in case you didn't know that. That was the wrap of everything that happened out of Champions Day over in Melbourne, and of course the news that we just spoke around that was the retirement of Pride of Jenny. And speaking of horses that people loved, she really captivated the nation.
Pride of Jenny at the 200. My goodness, 15 in front. Declan Bates goes for the whip, riding a ride out. There's no need. This is a demolition job. Pride of Jenny in the Queen Elizabeth Stakes. My oh my. The ride of the century, Declan Bates. My goodness, Pride of Jenny. The weight of the feather.
Thanks for being with us this morning on Weigh In. Just a little part to go before we bid you adieu. And it is time for our moments of the week. And there have been quite a few to choose from in Melbourne Cup week. Emily, I'll come to you first.
I went with Pam Gerard. I just think what a remarkable achievement for her to get the first Group 1 win in her own name. You could see the relief, the delight, the shock, the joy of the Group 1 win. So for Pam Gerard, well done to you. Very well deserved.
Jane?
I'm with Mr. Brightside. As I said yesterday, I'll always have a smile on my face when he's winning Group 1 races. I think that he's been an incredible flag bearer for not only Kiwi bred horses and the great things that they're doing in Australia, but also for the Hayes boys. He's kept their name in the limelight since David Hayes went up to Hong Kong, and he's just been an incredible horse. So 8th Group 1 win of his career, 16 million in prize money. He's just a great horse. He's gelding. He'll keep racing. So really excited to keep following his career.
16 million without an Everest to his name either. So those numbers are really amazing when he's racked up that much. Mine's via Sistina. We've already spoken about the significance of her and how she's kind of captivating everyone with what she's doing, the way she won this, the way she won the Cox Plate. Yeah, pretty easy one for me. She is an absolute machine, and whenever she comes back, cannot wait to see her on the racetrack again. That was our moments of the week. Now it's time for our Weight Watchers. Who have you picked? I'm going to go with you first, Jane. Who have you picked out?
Roderick, for me, he went round in the 4th event at Flemington yesterday for the Price Kent stable, dead heated for second. He ran the fastest last 600 of the entire meeting yesterday at Flemington, second fastest 400 metres of the day. He's building into his preparation, certainly one to follow. He can run at 12, he can run at 1400 metres. Keen to see where they go with him next.
I feel like I've not added a whole lot of value in my Well, look, there's a $1.55 favourite that won a Group 1 that I've put as my Weight Watcher. Wow, what I'm really delivering today. I just think it's going to be just intriguing where they're going to go, what they do with him, how he measures up, how the NZB Kiwi comes together. It's more of a watcher rather than a black booker for me. I think he's an interesting horse going forward in terms of what he does. And with Love Poem in that race, it's cool that the boys and the girls, they're pretty comparable, I think. So heading forward, that's going to make for some great racing.
Mine is Texas Dolly. Got stuck in a hole, sadly, for Michael McNabb from a wide draw. He tried to get her, got her close to the rail and then just sadly couldn't get out. She flew home, but I think she is definitely one to watch going forward. We've spoken a lot about jockeys today, and one in particular in Sam Sprat. Well, another female jockey is currently on the sidelines here in New Zealand, and a very good one at that in Lisa Allpress, who had a fall a couple of months ago, 2 or 3 months ago now, 3 or 4 months ago actually now, and is still recuperating down in Whanganui. I went to caught up with her, and here is what she had to say, and we'll play a lot more of this next week.
Must have been about the 6-week mark, because I just, thought that I could drive, and headed off to town. I got to the top of the hill and just started crying and just felt so overwhelmed about driving the car to town, and I was like, this is ridiculous, and sort of give myself a bit of an uppercut and get in there, and honestly got to town and I was just an absolute mess.
Yeah, it's been a pretty tough old time for Lisa Allpress. Fractured her back and has had really bad concussion issues. So I went to see her during the week and we will play a lot more of that next week. So please join us for weigh-in next week. Thank you very much, Emily, for your time this morning and your insight. Jane as well. Great to hear from both of you about all the amazing racing we've had over the last 7 days. We'll do it all again next week here on Weigh-In. You enjoy your racing week and Cup week, of course. What a week it is going to be.
Spirit and speed. Savaglee, a spectacular Guineas win. Sunshine in Paris, driving. Sunshine in Paris. Mr. Big Back, Mr. Brightside won it. Sistina, the star of the spring, and Jayne Ivil, perfect 10 again.
Not bad from a little humble kick from New Zealand. I steer them around a white rail and hope for the best, and they do the rest.